The World Health Organization warned that a possible Israeli attack on the border city of Rafah would accelerate the humanitarian crisis in the Palestinian territories. Hundreds of U.S. law enforcement officers violently stormed the University of California campus seeking to dismantle the students' Palestinian Solidarity Camp. And after a road collapse in Guangdong province in southeast China, the number of casualties has risen to 36. Hello and welcome to From the House. I am Irma Shelton, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. On Thursday, the World Health Organization warned that a possible Israeli attack on the border city of Rafah would accelerate the humanitarian crisis in the Palestinian territories. The director of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, alerted that tensions could unleash a humanitarian catastrophe for the Palestinian people. He also called on the Israeli government to reverse its decision and work towards a ceasefire. In turn, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterated his government's determination to carry out the operation regardless of whether an agreement is reached for a ceasefire and the release of the hostage. On Thursday, the Islamic resistance movement, Hamas, warned that it will stop all negotiations if Israel launches a ground operation against Rafah. In recent hours, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has assured that he will carry out the operation by land despite the advice of the deployed in the area and even his allies in Washington and Cairo. In this sense, the warnings about the devastating tragedy have not been heard by Tel Aviv. In view of the situation, the Hamas leaders warned that they will immediately suspend negotiations for the release of hostages and a ceasefire. For Israeli occupiers, weren't enough to totally or partially destroy 80% of the educational facilities in Gaza. The few they kept, they turned then into military bases. Euromed Human Rights Monitor unfolds so the extensive report denounces that Zionist army occupied schools, universities, and cultural centers and used them as military bases or barracks afterwards. This incident is a blatant violation of international law. The investigation points out that in addition to appropriating and destroying those spaces, they inflict torture there, turning those places into detention centers where serious human rights violations have been committed. The Zionist soldiers themselves provide evidence by posting their videos. On Wednesday, in the framework of the celebrations for the International Workers' Day, the President of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, reiterated his support to the Palestinian cause and the rejection to the Israeli genocide when he affirmed that his nation will break diplomatic relations with Israel. The statements of the Colombian president came into the middle of an intervention before workers of various trade unions and social organizations on his country. In the sense, Petro affirmed that this measure, which will be effective as of May 2, 2024, as the result of the fact that the State of Israel is administered by a genocidal regime.
aquí delante de ustedes,
Here in front of you, the government of change, the President of the Republic announced that tomorrow we will cut diplomatic relations with the State of Israel.
Hundreds of U.S. law enforcement officers have violently stormed the University of California campus seeking to dismantle the students' Palestinian Solidarity Camp. During the early hours of Thursday morning, they assault the area with gunshots and tear gas. The officers attacked the protective barrier set up after the arresting of pro-Israeli demonstrators that took place on Wednesday, and then proceeded to arrest every student who made a peaceful resistance. The young people and some teachers, social leaders, and human rights activists invoke the first constitutional right that protects freedom of expression. However, they've been left unheard. Likewise, on Wednesday, Texas State Police, along with military teams, stormed the University of Texas in Austin to break up a student camp protesting in solidarity with the Palestinian people. In this regard, officers arrest dozens of demonstrators in the last day, increasing tensions inside the university campus.
Free Palestine!
Now let's take a short break, but remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the House. On Wednesday, a high school student was shot and killed by a police officer in a school in the Mount Horeb district of Wisconsin in the Midwestern United States. According to the Attorney General W.H.O, the student was carrying a firearm outside the school. Precise car assured that the student fortunately had not managed to enter the school facilities, being the 14-year-old young man the only victim left by the incident, and at the same time the police report does not show any additional suspects related to the case. A call from the schools alerted the police, who ordered the campus to be closed due to the active shooter. Now we continue in the United States, where on Wednesday, another of the first whistleblowers of the failures in the production of Boeing airplanes died. In this sense, health officials confirmed the death of Joshua Dean, the second airline employee who died in recent months. In this case, the 45-year-old was a quality auditor for the organization. It is important to know that in October of 2022, the mechanical engineer discovered a serious manufacturing flaw in one of the company's planes and reported that mechanisms were performing faulty procedures in the tail section of the aircraft. On Wednesday, former U.S. President and presumptive Republican candidate Donald Trump promised from Wisconsin the largest deportation of migrants ever seen in the U.S. history. Trump assured the current U.S. administration's policy opened the door to millions of people, in his opinion, many of them very mean people. Those for the Republican person, this policy will contribute to the destruction of the country. Earlier, Trump granted in an interview to a local media to be planning the deployment of a military force to chase and arrest migrants, as well as the construction of a new detention camps. On his administration, several migrants died in the centers, including children. Social, political, and trade union movements in different countries around the world commemorate International Workers' Day with demonstrations and strikes. This May 1st, as every year, millions of workers around the world take to the streets in commemoration of the date. People celebrate the achievement obtained through the struggles for the respect of labor's rights throughout the years. On this day, workers also pay tribute to those who gave their life to achieve many of the labor rights that are now considered fundamental. Citizens take the occasion to make visible the claims of workers in the face of the unwillingness of big corporations to guarantee them. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, addressed the people in commemoration of the International Workers' Day. During his speech, Maduro highlighted the achievements of the Bolivarian government and praised the Venezuelan farmers for the increase in the food production in the nation. Let's have a listen.
And we can say today that in Venezuela has born a new economical model with diversity that guarantees the growth. First place, we have guaranteed the self-sufficient in 100% on the internal market of the country with national production. 100% the food of Venezuela is produced here. Thanks to who? To the countryside men, to the producers of the field.
In another part of his address to the Venezuelan people, Maduro denounced the United States government's intention to impose on Venezuela a colonialist model and stressed the Venezuelan people's firm decision to never allow that to happen.
The United States government pretends to impose a colonialist model. Which country can accept that to produce their own oil in their own land, to get through ships and ask another country for sanctions? Can Venezuela accept this model where we have to go to the United States to ask for licenses to produce our own oil? Never. We will never accept this. Never.
In Brazil, social movements in Rio de Janeiro commemorate the International Workers' Day in defense of working-class rights. The social activists express their support for the national education workers who are on strike for better working conditions, among them salary, readjustment, and professional valorization. The support for the Palestinian cause and the rejection of the genocide carried out by Israel in Gaza was also present in rallies across the country.
Es absurdo